All right, all right. Welcome back to another episode of the Behind the Back podcast. We are your hosts. I am Marcos Conan Negron, and beside me here, as always, is Ben the Jet Rets. Ben, football is finally here. How you feeling, brother?
Dude, I'm so hyped.
I know, week one, baby. So we got a lot of fun stuff to talk about. Obviously, we're going to break down the Eagles versus Packers and the Niners versus Jets on top of all of the news from both sides of the story, and we'll check in with our Chargers team, our third team of the year. And we'll also reveal our picks for the week from our weekly picks. And we'll describe that more as we get into it. But honestly, let's get right into it. The Eagles are going to Brazil on Friday. So I get to see them in 2 freaking days, dude. I'm excited. And it's going to be an interesting matchup. And there's been a lot of talk about this whole Brazil matchup. I don't know if you heard about any of that.
I have heard some of it, but I'll let you elaborate on it.
Fair enough. So when I was looking into this, and I think it was just a few days ago, there was reports that especially like none of the players were really commenting on, oh, hey, you guys want to go to, are you excited to play Brazil? Devontae Smith, no comment. AJ Brown's like, they're telling us about a lot of things not to do. And Darius Slay went on his podcast. It's like, I told my family not to come because it's not safe and I'm going to be hiding in the hotel the whole time. And on top of that, the Brazilian government is kind of going through their own nonsense right now. So the divide has kind of been a little crazy there. And on top of that, apparently there's a wildfire happening that's kind of close by, but apparently they're still monitoring it and, it's not affecting the arena as it stands. So there's all that going on, right? So it's a little weird so far out of the gate, but I've heard some things that kind of contradict, the negative. So, Jalen Hurts and Saquon have come out and said it's a huge opportunity. Our third string quarterback, Tanner McKee, served his 2-year mission in Brazil. So he's actually super familiar with the area and has been trying to kind of talk down a lot of the guys like, hey, like it's going to be just fine. But another cool aspect is like apparently there's a ton of Eagles fans down there. So it's going to feel like supposedly it's going to feel like an Eagles home game down there. So I'm excited for that, especially since we're losing a home game this year because of it.
While you were talking about that, I didn't hear about the fire.
Mm-hmm.
And I was curious if they were playing in an arena with a closed top or if it was an open dome. And I'm trying to find that out because if there's a fire nearby and these guys have got to breathe in smoke for 2.5 hours, that's going to be really crappy.
Right. I don't think they would do that if it wasn't safe. That's the thing with all of this. So they say it's far enough away where it's not an issue.
Okay.
And I also think it's an open arena. I don't think it's closed. But there's a lot of cool things about the Corinthians arena. Apparently it's built super old school. Kind of like that, not SoFi, but kind of like that one stadium that the Chargers were StubHub. They were playing in that temporary StubHub where the volume kind of comes down. Super old school vibe. So apparently that's what it's going to feel like. They also took a look at the field. Obviously, it's a soccer field that's used professionally, so it already has good grass on it. They refurbished it and whatever the heck they do to it to make it ready for the game. So hopefully that pans out too.
That's the nice part. They at least don't have to play on turf. I mean, we came on here week 1 of last year and talked about Aaron Rodgers' injury and how I went on a whole rant about, turf fields and how they just need to be gone at this point. So, it looks like Brazil's kind of doing it right. But, I saw some of the stuff coming out about the players not really being happy about going to Brazil. And it's not really them being happy about going or anything like that. It's mainly more about like the accommodations of just what's going on around there right now. And you just spoke to it. And it seems rushed in a lot of ways.
Yeah, apparently there was a report I saw that this Brazil game was kind of a year ahead of schedule. They said it was supposed to be a 2025 event, but the NFL saw the opportunity, and if it's just good enough, then I guess so, it'll make them money anyway. So it is a little disappointing that it was kind of rushed, and some of those guys are just going to be hanging in the hotel the whole time. It's going to be quick. They just flew down there tonight. So they should be there already, and they're at their hotel. So they're going to get extra rest, practice tomorrow, go back to the hotel, and it's game day on Friday. So it's like, it's super quick. They're going to be in and out. So, they gave him a list of things not to do, but the way that AJ kind of said it a little weird. They're like a whole list of don't do's, but Nick Sirianni kind of like elaborated on it a bit, and he's like, we do this anytime we go on the road. It doesn't matter if it's in America. Like for New England, we broke down the do's and don'ts for the area that we're going to be in. Same thing if we were to go on the road to California, or if we're just educating on our guys on what we want from them while they're there. So it's just the little things like that. Not like, oh, your guys are going to stay in your hotel room. You can't go here or here, stuff like that. So,
And that's honestly, that's a high functioning organization at that point. You're trying to ensure everything goes to plan. The ultimate goal is to get out of wherever you're at, whether it's home or away, with a win. So on that note, Marcos, this is the home, or rather the season opener for the Eagles in Brazil. This is two high flying offenses, two of the top three youngest teams by average right now.
mm-hmm.
And this is a potential future playoff matchup for what could be years to come. Um, in my opinion, I think this is like the first time in a number of years, maybe since 2018, that the Eagles have opened on what could be actually a really difficult game. How do you feel going in?
I feel good. There's a lot of unknowns, and I think the funny part is it's with both teams. Like both of these teams are very similar, and they had a lot of movement in the offseason, made a lot of effort to improve their rosters. They still have holes in certain areas, but they also added studs in certain areas. So it's going to be, I anticipate this game being a kind of high scoring game. I think you got the biggest things to pay attention to is that obviously the Eagles have two new coordinators, but the Packers also have a rookie defensive coordinator. And this rookie defensive coordinator used to be the former head coach of Boston College. So he's coming from a college system, and they weren't that great when he was there, which was also interesting. Um, so they ran a lot of cover two last year, and they weren't that great defensively to begin with. And this year it's gonna seem like a little bit more cover one, a little bit more man to man. So it's gonna be interesting. Which is why I think offensively the Eagles are gonna kind of have matchups they can exploit in this one too. Just like the Packers are going to have matchups they can exploit. When it comes to the Packers versus the Eagles defense, what I really want to see, first off, Devin White, the Eagles' newest linebacker acquisition, is going to be out of that game. He hurt his ankle apparently, so sucks. We're not going to have him on there, but Nakobe Dean did a really good job of kind of finding his way back to form during training camp, and during the preseason games. And Vic Fangio seems to trust him a lot. So he was already going to be in the rotation to begin with. So he's just going to get an added role. And hopefully he lives up to the potential that the Eagles have had for him, because he's just been hurt all the time. So hopefully he can stay healthy, because when he stays healthy, he's the smartest player on the field. He just knows how to be in the right spots. So he's always a good player to have when things are clicking for him. But Matt LaFleur comes from a Kyle Shanahan style system, and their favorite thing to pick apart is the linebackers. And regardless, the Eagles didn't have a strong linebacking core to begin with. So it's going to be a lot of pressure on the defensive line and a lot of pressure on these corners to really stick with their guys and create pressure. And that's one thing I'm really excited about. I think the matchup where the Eagles have the best advantage is going to be that defensive line against the Packers O-line. The Packers O-line is a work in progress. Still, you got guys coming in and out of injury. They're just not that talented up front. They drafted Jordan Morgan. That's good for them. But I think Jalen Carter, this might be his he's going to showcase a little bit more of what we saw at the beginning of last year. Him and Jordan Davis are going to be fresh. I think the interior of the Eagles defensive line is going to wreak havoc. And from everything that I saw from Jalen Carter going into camp, and coming out of camp, I was already extremely high on him last year. I remember for the first 7 weeks I was doing a Jalen Carter check-in. And there's a lot of reports that he might just end up being one of the best defensive players overall this year. So when he passes the eye test with flying colors. So I'm really excited to just kind of see him not go against our guys, and just really see if the Packers are going to game plan around him. Are they going to double team him? Like, what's going to happen with Jalen Carter right out of the gate? Because I think him, Jordan Davis, Bryce Huff, our newest addition, that defensive front is going to make the difference in this game. And generating pressure doesn't seem to bother Jordan Love. He was really good under pressure last year, but I think anything that's going to be the biggest battle up front.
Yeah, so on that note, I've kind of I guess, highlighted a few players on Green Bay, specifically that the Eagles need to stop if they want a really good chance at running away with this game. And I'm gonna name off some guys here, and I want to get your opinion on what you think of these. So,
Mhm.
obviously it's Jordan Love, right? Dude's in the back half of that year last year was just monster. He was probably one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL at a certain point last year. Um, he has so many different options to beat you. Like he can beat you on the ground with his legs by scrambling. They now have a nice wide receiver room. Like they've got Josh Jacobs who can just run all over you. And I'm actually looking at Christian Watson, and I'm thinking about the deep shots, the potential deep shots that kind of opens up the game for the Packers. And I saw a lot of issues last year, and obviously it was after the collapse happened with the Eagles. But there were so many scenarios where deep shot after deep shot after deep shot was open, whether it was actually hit or not. It was open and it was there. And so I'm thinking about that, and I'm thinking about the Packers having so much, just hype going on all season, all off season long. Going into this game in Brazil, it's like they're going to come out and try and make a statement. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And I'm thinking about that deep ball potential, and I'm thinking about an edge rusher in Kenny Clark, he's nasty. He can make a difference in a game. Um, as long as Lane Johnson keeps doing his false starts, we'll be okay. But but no, I'm looking at that D line for them, and
It's a problem.
yeah, it could be a problem. I'm, looking at the offensive line for the Eagles, and obviously you guys are still probably top 10. Um, but it's not nearly what it was last year. So it's going to be interesting, like you kind of discussed or talked about how you're not going to be going up against your same team. It's not training camp, it's not practice. You're getting some real reps now, and it's going to be interesting to see how they do that. So my top guys are Jordan Love, Christian Watson, and I have to pick between Kenny Clark and Josh Jacobs. I think I'm going to go Kenny Clark just because I could see some holes potentially that the offensive line for the Eagles might need to figure out.
Yeah, speaking on the offensive line, that is going to be the biggest question when the offense steps out on the field. And it's going to be, how does this offensive line look without Kelsey? And, Cam Jurgens is taking over and we're starting Mekhi Becton at the guard. And again, it's just a matter of these guys don't. Cam Jurgens, he was hurt last year, but he played a good chunk of the season, at least half the season. So he is familiar with the guys on the line. So Mekhi is the main guy that's the new addition. And he's never played a full game of guard. So this is going to be an interesting experiment. And Kenny Clark is a game wrecker, and not just him. They got Rashawn Gary. Then they got a stacked defensive, front seven that can actually be a problem. And
It's
it's going to
nasty.
be, I'm interested to see. Again, everyone thinks Jalen Hurts' blitz, against zero blitz is a fatal flaw. I wonder how often he's going to get blitzed. I wonder when the offense steps out, how much motion we're going to see, how much of this Kellen Moore, when we look at the product in the field, how different does it look? So, because I'm not worried about the matchups individually. Offensively, our skill position group offensively is going to cook their corners and everything like that, especially if they're in a good position. I think Jair Alexander is a wonderful corner, but he's at that point of his career where AJ Brown's going to, sun him very quick. And on the flip side, the Packers receivers have a wonderful young trio too. Like you mentioned, Christian Watson, Romeo Dobbs, and I believe Dontavian Wicks, I believe is his name, somewhere like that. But that's a really nice young trio, and Jordan Love loves to share the wealth. He was not targeting just one dude. And while that's effective, that could also come down to the difference in scheme. Like the Eagles have two dudes that they can target at all times and bully you with. So it's going to be interesting to see who the Packers choose to attack with. And they also have Luke Musgrave. The Eagles are horrible against tight ends last year, so it'll be interesting to see if they try to target the middle of the field, target our linebackers. That's going to be a huge key. But defensively, the one guy for me that I'm most excited to see is going to be our first round corner, Quinyon Mitchell. Vic Fangio came out and said that Quinyon is going to be playing most, if not all, the snaps, and whether it's a mixture of slot and on the outside, he's going to see reps at both. So this is a good test. It's going to be against three talented receivers who could prove to be a good test for him. So I'm excited to see him too.
Well, as usual, you were correct. It is Dontavion. You were spot on with that. I got a question that I want you to answer, and you can give me a long-winded answer. That's cool, but I'm going to ask a question out of that. Okay.
Okay.
So the first question of this whole thing: what do you expect? What kind of a game do you expect to see out of Jalen Hurts?
Great question, because I've been thinking about this all week. I don't need him to explode. I think the biggest question is, how much is Kellen Moore planning on using Saquon? And because Kellen Moore is a kind of offensive coordinator who likes to fling the ball, so he likes to sling it. So if he's out there just letting Jalen Hurts rip it, I expect a big game out of Jalen, because I expect the scheme to make it easier for Jalen. A big game for him, for me, would probably be like 275 plus yards and 2 to 3 touchdowns, and hopefully no interceptions, and then probably 40-ish yards on the ground. That'd be like a big game. But the biggest X factor is going to be Saquon, and that will how they decide to use Saquon will determine how much Jalen Hurts, how much action he's going to be responsible for.
So the reason I asked you that was, and I'm pulling up his stats in this game. In 2022, the Eagles played the Packers,
Mm-hmm.
and in 2022, in that game, the Packers ran man defense the entire game, and I know it didn't work well for them. Hurts just ran all over that man defense. And so I'm thinking about the looks, the kind of defensive looks that they're going to throw at the Eagles, because obviously the wide receiver room wasn't what it was in 2022 like it is now, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot better now. And same with the running back room, obviously. And so there's, at this point, I'm looking at how you can defend this team. I don't see how you could straight up defense, play man defense against the Eagles, because sure, if you want to lock up all those guys, you want to lock up AJ, you want to lock up Devontae, you want to lock up Saquon. Okay, Hurts is going to take off. And that's what's terrifying, because that was the aspect of the Eagles that we saw in 2022, 23 when they went to that Super Bowl. Like, that was what was missing all last year. There was a defined way to beat the Eagles last year after week 10. And everybody knew the recipe.
Mm-hmm.
This year's a lot different, and I think people are sleeping on that. Like, people have the Eagles at like 7 through like 12th. I've seen, in terms of the power rankings.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, do you guys realize like what that offense could do? It really does come down to like, it comes down to, what does that O-line look like? And how much time is Jalen Hurts going to get? And on top of that, what kind of looks are they going to get, defensively? Because I don't see many ways you can defend this team right now. It looks a lot like, the Niners in that sense. It's like there's so many different ways to beat you. I will say too, though, I am a little bit worried still about the secondary. And I think you're banking on youth there, which nothing wrong with that.
Mm-hmm.
But in this game especially, I just talked about those deep shots. I see scenarios where you can have Christian just going straight downfield, breaking loose, and then it's a dot from Love.
Mm-hmm.
And that flips a script on it all of a sudden, where it's like you could see a game kind of flip all of a sudden. And that's where it's like, can you, as Jalen Hurts in the offense, and just get rolling coming out of that? Or is it going to be kind of like touch and feel, and it's going to be like that the first few weeks? Because we talked about, you didn't see any of those offensive guys get any reps in the preseason. And we talked about too, there's no right or wrong way to do it. But it's one of those situations where it's like, what if they start from behind?
Mm-hmm.
Like, what if Green Bay opens up this game just absolutely on fire, and y'all are playing from behind the whole game? What does that look like? And so that's going to be the biggest question, honestly.
Yeah, and I think so, because I agree with that. And I also, what makes me not nervous about it is just because, given how the same thing can be said about the Packers defense and our receivers, right? I think it's going to be kind of one of those games for Philly offensively, where this might not be where a Kellen Moore scheme matters. This might actually be, oh, they're going to man us up all game. We're just going to have to play, you know, dare them to beat our stars. And
Yeah,
9 times out of 10, our stars are going to win this battle. So I think it's going to be an offensive showdown. I don't think either defense is going to look really good in this one. I think that, especially when we look at Vic Fangio's defense last year with Miami, the worst 4 weeks that they had were, or the worst 3 weeks he had were in the first 4 weeks of the season with that defense before they really started picking things up, because his defense
that's
is
right.
complicated.
Hmm.
So you're throwing new pieces in there, young pieces as well. It's a complicated defense. He's a very old school guy. So there's going to be growing pains, and there might be a moment where, oh man, a broken coverage, a miscommunication, somebody's running free. And I anticipate that to happen at least once or twice in this game. And I am a little nervous because Matt LaFleur is kind of that guy who can scheme up a very nasty, devious kind of playbook when he
You
has
know what?
time to
What he's
plan for it.
best at is just he falls under that Shanahan tree where it's you bank on the guys that you have to make a play. So all that they do is scheme for one or two guys to have space with the football. Typically, it's one guy. You bank on the one guy, and then you have just an emergency, get out of jail free dump off to whoever the case, But a lot of the times, like for the 49ers, it's Debo in space, or it's Christian McCaffrey in space, or it's Brandon in space, and you see nobody around them, and that includes the defense because it's that play has been schemed for them. And so I'm looking at that kind of a scenario specifically with Christian Watson because I'm super high on him, and I think that he could be nasty on this team. But I do agree with you. I think defensively we're not going to see a perfect game from either team, and I don't think offensively we'll see a perfect game either.
Right.
I think there's going to be a turnover, at least one in this game. I would bank on it being the younger, more inexperienced quarterback, even though he's great. I think that, look, there's a lot of bright lights right now. He's in Brazil. This is a big game, whether, however they feel about it or not. This is an international game. You're going to want to go out there and you're going to want to make a statement. And specifically when you've had an off season like the Packers have, where it's just been hype, hype, hype train, like hype me up kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
I can absolutely see a scenario where he's like, I can fit that ball in there. And then, it's just a turnover. So
Yeah.
it's going to be a fun game, man. It's going to be high scoring. I have a score and a prediction, but I want to get your final thoughts on everything before we get into that.
Yeah. So final thoughts. I'm excited to see this offense in action. I'm just excited to see what it looks like. Like I have no clue. Like I have no clue what it's going to look like until I see it and I get to watch what kind of plays they're generating and what happens when they face adversity. And I think this, for both teams, this is an awesome first game to have because both of these teams are going to test each other. And defensively, if our D line can generate pressure and just force Love's timing to be a little bit off, he's capable of making any kind of throw on the field. But if we can throw him off a little bit, we've had success with Mike McDaniel and just being able to throw off timing. So hopefully this defensive front that we are banking on and hoping on without Hassan Reddick is going to, flourish, and hopefully Jalen and Jordan can really take that step forward. And our corners, it's week 1, so I'm not as worried about the speed of it all because I think Slay will still be sticky in week 1. But I'm more excited to see Quinyon and CJ Gardner-Johnson back in the fold. I just want to see how that looks too. This is a lot of unknowns, and I'm excited to see just where this team needs work. So score-wise, I think it's going to be a high-scoring game. I don't see a world where these defenses hold these offenses down. So I'm gonna go Eagles winning, of course. And it's gonna be close. It's gonna be close. I'm gonna call it 34-31 Philly.
That's super close to what I have. So I have 35-28.
Okay.
And I have Philly as well. Because
I'll take the
it's
touchdown.
going to come down to the experience and who you have at the helm, honestly. I think that Jalen's going to have a pretty complete game, knock on wood. And I think we're going to see a lot of like flashy and really like looking forward to the future style plays from both of these teams.
Mm-hmm.
And we talked about it. These are two of the top 3 youngest teams in the NFL. Like what an exciting time for all of these guys. What an exciting time for these organizations. And what does this look like for the potential future playoff matchups? Like, these two teams could be seeing each other for years to come. And that's going to be fun to see. So, yeah, I have 35-28.
That's awesome. And one last thing, I think that as fun as this is going to be, I can't stress the importance of this game for Philly. And it's important for Green Bay because everyone, like you said, has them on a hype train. But everyone is in the reverse on Eagles. They don't know what to think. If the Eagles come out and lose, they're going to point to that collapse last year and they're like, will they be able to rebound from this? What it doesn't winning fixes everything, but especially if we come out and lay a goose egg on week 1, that's going to be the big worry. So I'm definitely going to be looking out to see just the body language of this team, how they respond if things are going poorly, how things respond if they're going well. Like, these are the things I have to pay attention to. I'm really excited though. Friday night, I'm hyped, and yeah, it's going to be a good time. So that's enough on the Eagles. Let's move on to what, we hear nothing all summer. Nothing really happens, just like every classic Niners offseason. And then in the span of 48 hours, everything collapses or everything just falls into place with this team. So, Ben, I will let you take it away. Before we break down the Packers versus Jets, Niners versus Jets, there's some news from the Niners. Take it away.
Well, so the most recent news was obviously Trent Williams. He's back. We got this over back. And I cannot be more excited. I told you I think that was the most like almost mandatory thing for the Niners to do. Like, it was, you had to get that deal done. It was more important in my opinion than the Brandon Ayuk. We need both players. Definitely need to be running behind Trent Williams, and we need him protecting Purdy's blind spot. With that being said, he got a massive payday. So Trent got a 3-year, $82.6 million contract. $48 million of that is guaranteed at signing, and $25.6 million was a signing bonus. So bro got paid.
Yes, sir.
His career earnings, get this, Marcos. I'll tell you this first. He's the richest non-quarterback in NFL history, okay?
Wow.
He is now netted to make $358 million. 183 of that is guaranteed.
Whoa, that's crazy money.
Talk about being extremely important to your team, to whatever team you're on. Like, this dude is the epitome of it. Like, and he's been paid accordingly ever since, his first payday. So look, I'm hyped because what this honestly means is Trent's looking to be with us the rest of his career.
Exactly, for sure.
If he was willing to get a deal like this done, obviously, if the Niners were willing to dish out a deal like this, it means that we want him for the rest of his career. He has only gotten better since he came into the league. I believe that he's still getting better. I'm not going to say that he can get better from here, but he hasn't regressed.
No.
We've seen some injuries from him, but that happens when you're a big dude and you take on the toughest guy that the opposing team has to throw at you every single time. And so I'm looking at that and what we got done on Tuesday, and I'm hyped about it. So I will also say this past, I guess, week now, because by the time the episode comes out, it'll be Thursday. This past week has been everything that Niners fans needed to hear, because all off season long has been just depressing, has been a lot of questions, a lot of unknowns, and basically 100 hours now worth of just good vibes. And it's almost perfect timing. So it started with Brandon Ayuk on Thursday. He got his payday. He got the 4-year 120, which that's a massive contract. That's wide receiver one money. And
that's right.
That was really good to see, because I talked about how he's going to be crucial to the future of the 49ers after this core is no longer together. And getting that deal done was the beginning of what I believe to be the next step for the 49ers. That was big. Then something really bad happened Saturday. Ricky Pearsall was obviously shot in an armed robbery attempt. And honestly thank everything, thank God, thank like the heavens, like it worked out. He every major artery, organ, everything was missed. No bone was hit. Like it was what's considered a through and through. It went through his chest and out the backside of his shoulder, and it hit nothing but just, I mean, obviously muscle and tendons, right? But it didn't do any like major structural damage. And so bro
That's
was back in
awesome.
the facility on Saturday working out.
Yeah.
So I'm looking at Saturday because I want to use Saturday as an example.
Mm.
Um, or sorry, not he was back in the facility Tuesday working out. My apologies. I want to use Tuesday as an example because Tuesday needed to happen for the 49ers to open up the season how I've expected and wanted them to. Tuesday, Brandon Ayuk is back at practice. Trent Williams is there. Ricky Pearsall makes an appearance. Juwan Jennings is back at practice. Christian McCaffrey is back at practice. Like all these dudes who have talked about the veteran presence, you got 3 vets right there basically who come back, make an appearance when you need them most. And I've talked about how crucial those vets are going to be going into a year after a Super Bowl loss, which is for Trent the second time that he's seen it, for Juwan the second time he's seen, like, we've been here before. You're going to need these vets who have done this dance before. They finally made their appearance. We've got all that stuff done. Trent said that the reason that he came back and wanted to make a deal was because of that situation with Ricky.
Yeah, I heard
Like,
that. Yeah, I saw that.
did it really take Ricky getting shot for this whole thing to happen? Like, then it's a conspiracy against John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan because, like, what are we doing?
Yeah, I
But
saw that. I saw the reports that people were getting mad that they weren't that the day after, a few days after the shooting, we're hearing, oh, the Trent Williams deal, and
yeah,
but they forget that John Lynch was there at the hospital with Ricky. I don't know. I don't know if you heard about that
I
injury prone thing or whatever.
yeah. So that's a great point. So John Lynch visits Ricky in the hospital, and he's checking in on him. He's, how you doing, bud? How you doing? And Ricky says, "Coach, I promise I'm not injury prone." And like that that honestly, like, low-key breaks my heart because it's like this kid has been nothing but available for his entire career, entire life, right? He gets to the big level and he's dealing with an injury. He's dealing with something else. And then it's a shoulder, and now it's obviously something that he had absolutely no control over. And it was like this situation where it's just like, can the dude catch a break?
Yeah.
And John obviously made it clear. He's like, dude, you're not going anywhere. We're not going anywhere. Like, you're fine. Take the time you need, get back. I think what people are failing to realize is it's not just a physical injury. When you get shot, that's a mental thing too. And that's one thing, like, that's one of the reasons I think that, like, Trent started to make that appearance and some of these dudes around the Niners locker room started to kind of shift that mentality, was because it's like, one of our guys just had something really major happen to him where, like, he could have not been here. And it's like, it almost feels like it's a motivation for them to just kind of realize what they've got going, realize what they can do, and get fighting for something.
Hmm.
So yeah, that whole situation with Ricky, man, it was scary. You were over here Saturday, we were hanging out, and then I got the news after you had left, and I genuinely didn't believe it. I was
Yeah.
like shocked. I was like, there is no way. Because you look at these players and you're like, they've got to have security on them and around them all the time. There's no way these kind of things happen.
Yeah, and it was funny because like it was literally right when I got home and I saw your text. I was like, "What the heck?" Like, of course, like that's crazy. Um, and again, we're grateful that nothing bad happened to Ricky. It's super. He's not the most recent NFL player. I believe it was what Brian Robinson from Washington got, robbed in Philly and got shot. So it's like it sucks, and it's something you can't possibly prepare for. And I'm glad that he's okay. Like that's never something you want anyone to go through. So I'm glad that he's in the weight room. I heard that his street cred really went up or with the team,
Yeah.
surviving that shot. So, I think, in a like you mentioned, in a weird, twisted kind of way, it brought this team together. And I wanted to ask you because a week before the season, everything is, business as usual, back to business, right? With the Niners. And I wonder, we we spent all offseason just getting upset with how they do business, but I had a question when it comes to that. Do you think the Niners will just, so long as, John Lynch, Kyle Shanahan, that regime is there, is this just going to be the expectation moving forward? Should we just not panic at all until the week before the season when it comes to this team?
I think it's safe to say at this point. And it's hilarious coming out of my mouth because early on in the offseason, I was like, don't worry about it. We'll pay him. It'll be fine. Look what happened to Debo. Look what happened to Nick. Like, it takes time. These things take time. But now we've officially seen what the worst contract situation looks like. And I don't want to say that. I don't want to imagine a scenario where we have a worse contract negotiation in the future. But ultimately, yeah, I think that the 49ers, they have a distinct way of doing business. And I did talk about how you have so many stars and you only have so much money, and you have a quarterback who's going to be worth a lot of money soon to get paid. And so you kind of have to be stern with numbers that you expect to pay guys. And so I'm not surprised that it got to this point. But ultimately, I'm just happy that we got here. I'm happy that we're running back basically the same squad that we were last year.
Mm-hmm.
And another note too, they restructured Debo's contract yesterday. And so the 49ers are going to be, they have 50 mil to work with this year, and then they have 60 mil in cap space to work with going into next year. And that's massive because I think what that could potentially mean is obviously that we're going to be paying Brock Purdy, but there's a chance that we could be sticking with Debo too. Like there's a potential there for him to get another contract.
It's not a bad take.
I've looked at the way that we've seen this progression with Lynch being in the front office where he structures these contracts so well. Like all the money is backloaded and then it's a restructure, and it's backloaded and it's a restructure, and that's how you're able to keep so many of these stars for so many years. Obviously it helps too when you pay your quarterback $1 a game. But I'm looking at that situation and I'm like, I have so much faith that whoever the 49ers decide to ride with, because you won't be able to keep everybody, but whoever they decide to ride with, you're going to keep a lot of them.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that there's still going to be a window. It's not going to be the same window, but there's still going to be a window. So I'm kind of hyped about that.
So on a funnier note, there was a quote from Brandon Ayuk I didn't know if you wanted to mention on his take on this whole contract situation.
Yeah. I really don't, because it made me mad. But ultimately, they asked Brandon, he was like, would you get out of the whole contract situation, yada yada. He was like, honestly, I made the contract negotiations a little more difficult than they needed to be at the end. And shocker, right? But it's like, it's so frustrating because it's like, why did you do that?
Mm-hmm.
Like, why did it have to be like that? When ultimately you knew you wanted to be a 49er. The 49ers wanted you to be a 49er. Like, and you came to the table multiple times, but it ended up like we had to throw however many contracts at you with different looks and different smiles on the faces for you to ultimately take a contract that was reportedly available to you weeks prior.
Right.
And so that whole situation was interesting. And it's funny now looking back at it, but
Exactly.
if you'd have told me that he would have said that crap like 2 weeks ago while he wasn't paid yet, dude, I'd be so mad.
No, that's fair. That's why I brought it up. I thought it was funny because when you texted us, I knew that you were more on the other side of things. But now that it's all taken care of, I know it's more lighthearted at this point. All right. So then let's talk about week 1. Obviously,
Yes.
you have to wait an extra day before you get to see your beloved Niners, but they play arguably one of the most fun matchups of the weekend, or the week, with the New York Jets. So break down this matchup for me. What are you most excited about? What are you most interested in seeing? Any players that stick out to you? What's the deal? What are we feeling?
I'm going to open it up with an interesting conspiracy.
Ooh,
So
okay.
Aaron Rodgers went out last year in game 1 off of a tackle by Leonard Floyd.
Oh, right.
Leonard Floyd is a 49er now. I'm thinking about the NFC Championship game in 2023 when Hassan Reddick took out my boy Purdy. And I'm thinking about how that was a season-ending injury. And now, if it's a major if, Hassan Reddick is available for week 1.
Thank God we don't have to deal with that.
Yeah, y'all dodged a bullet. But if he's available for week 1, he's going to see Purdy. And Aaron Rodgers is going to be seeing Leonard Floyd. So the NFL, y'all scripted this really well. You set this up 3 years in advance. Like, that's annoying, man. I can't believe y'all set it up that early. But no,
That's so
ultimately,
funny.
dude, Monday Night Football. I am a little upset I have to wait all weekend for it, but at the same time, it's going to be a hype Monday. Like, I'm going to be stoked. It's not going to feel like Monday. It's just going to be a blur of a day.
Yep.
I'll just dive right into it, honestly. The Jets have probably, they definitely have a top 3 defense in my eyes.
For sure.
There's a hell of an argument there for top 1. And I'm looking at that Jets secondary and Sauce Gardner, DJ Reed, Carter, dude, the secondary, the DBs, the cornerbacks, that room is nasty.
Mhm.
And ultimately, it's going to be, you got to get the ball out of Purdy's hands quick, because now I'm looking at the D-line. Their D-line is good. If they have Hassan Reddick, it's going to be great.
Yeah.
There's just no doubt that their defense is ultimately what's going to carry them for the vast majority of the season. Now, the question lies with their offense. How potent is their offense? How well does it get going? There's been reports all off season long that Aaron Rodgers has just kind of been an a-hole out there. He's not really being a leader. He's being standoffish with his teammates. He's going through the progressions and he's making plays, but it doesn't feel like things are tied together with them yet on that end of things. So that's going to be the biggest question for them, not just going into week 1, but going into the season, is, can this team really, pull together offensively and get the runs going that they need to? The Niners start off this week. We have all our offensive starters. We are healthy going into the year. And that was a concern because, Christian McCaffrey dealing with a McCaff injury, and Jawan Jennings dealing with something, and Debo having something at one point, but it wasn't really that serious. There was a little bit of concern. It was are they going to be healthy? Is it going to be another year full of injuries? Well, week 1 starts off relatively healthy and offensively extremely healthy. So I couldn't ask any more of that. Jets offensively, Breece Hall is pretty much a baby CMC. In my eyes, he's
got potential for sure.
Yeah, he does everything the CMC does, just not to the extent that CMC does it. So Breece Hall is a baller. I think he could have a big year for them. I'm really concerned with that Jets defense.
So let me throw this to you, because you threw this at me. The like you just mentioned, I agree with everything you said about that Jets defense, and not to mention they're one of the few defenses that has a linebacking core that's comparable to the Niners in terms of strength and skill with CJ Mosley. Those guys are talented. So do you think, what kind of game do you expect from your QB, Brock Purdy? Especially now that everyone's back and he's got the gang together, just like Jalen and the Eagles do. How are you feeling about him going into week 1? What do you think performance he's going to have?
I think it's going to be a clean game. I don't think he's going to have a big game, because I think ultimately you have to beat this Jets team on the ground. And if you're not beating them on the ground, it's going to be a lot of quick throws. The objective is gonna be get the ball out of Purdy's hands as quickly as possible. And honestly, like I'm looking at even their linebackers that the Jets have, and that's terrifying. Like that's probably a top 3 duo as well.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's nasty, dude. So honestly, I expect Purdy to have a clean game. I don't want him to turn the ball over at all. Um, and I want him to, if he sees a shot, take the shot. But you're probably only going to have one. Like ultimately, I don't think that this Jets defense is going to show you much.
Mm-hmm.
And Robert Saleh is he's a defensive specialist. You know what I mean? Like he knows what he's doing. And as a head coach right now, he's on the hot seat. And he shouldn't be, in my opinion. It's not his fault. He's had crap quarterbacks ever since he got there. And the one year he was going to have one, he lost him within 4 minutes. So it's like he's just kind of been handed a crap, hand
Yeah.
and expected to improve. Well, he had like 4 wins the first year or something, and then he was 7-10, or no, it was 7-10, and then 10-7, 10-7, or something. I can't remember.
Mm-hmm.
But ultimately, like he hasn't had a good run there, and
Yeah.
with him being on the hot seat, I think he's going to invest heavily in that defense again this year, because the thing with them is if they can just be somewhat good on offense, and that's not asking much. If they can be somewhat good on offense, they're going to win a lot of games.
Right. That's the whole point with the Jets this year. It's like, oh hey, if their offense was capable with Zach Wilson barely last year and they still won games, Aaron Rodgers will elevate the floor of this team.
Yeah, 100%.
And with Saleh, it's a good point. I mean, if there's anybody who's had practice against this Kyle Shanahan system on a daily basis, it's Robert Saleh when he was there as the defensive coordinator. And I agree he's handed the short end of the stick there in New York. And it might, if things don't go well, he's going to be let go. And it's a tough spot for him to be in. And that does create a sense of urgency because I do think the players like playing for him and things like that. So Sauce versus BA, it's going to be an awesome matchup. These corners against your receivers are going to be tough. Kittle, he's going to have to break out and have a good game to keep things going. How are these offensive lines for both of these teams? Obviously, Trent Williams aside, the rest of this offensive line for the Niners is a question mark. And when you look at the Jets, same thing. They also invested in a rookie tackle, and they're banking on injury-prone Tyron Smith, which is a good improvement from what they had before. But there's still a lot of questions, and both of these defensive lines can cause an issue. I don't know if I see Hassan Reddick playing. Like there hasn't been any positive reports coming from his situation, and like again we talked about this. Like a player can stay in shape, but Hassan, like I don't know if he can. You want to practice getting that burst off during the week, and if he can't do that during the week, it's just hard to expect him to just go straight into game day on a game that I hate to say, knock on wood and everything, but that the Niners look like the better team. So it's almost interesting. Like, do you want to throw Hassan out there if there's a chance that you're probably, not going to be seeing the result that you want? And there was talks amongst Jets fans. They're like, please just sit Rodgers this game because we got a cookie cutter schedule for the next like 5 weeks. So we don't need him out here week 1. We're nervous. And the same thing, Leonard Floyd, the whole conspiracy, they're nervous, dude. It's going to be interesting. But I mean, Rodgers is going to play. It's, Santa Clara. That's where, he's a Cali boy. This is going to be a fun game for him. But I agree with your take that I don't think that offense is in rhythm yet, and it's going to take them those weaker weeks over the next 4 weeks after this game to really figure it out. I think the Niners are as tough as a test as anyone's going to have in week 1, so that you never want to go up against them week 1.
Yeah, and it will come down to those offensive lines. And ultimately, like the thing is, we've talked about how there's going to be weaknesses in every team. Like there's always going to be a flaw at whatever position or whatever the case. The objective is to hide those as best you can. And for the 49ers, like the game plan, like I said, you have Christian McCaffrey, you have JP Mason, like use those guys. And I'm not saying run CMC into the ground or anything like that, but you have a dude who in Debo who can be a decoy. You have a dude in Christian McCaffrey who can be a decoy. Like, if you're going to go through the air, which they will, I expect them to probably throw the ball 25 to 30 times. With that being the case, that ball needs to be out of his hands within like 2 seconds.
Yeah.
Like, these plays need to happen quick. And I think that this is the tough part about it. Because if you would ask me, like, who I expect wide receiver wise to have the best game, I'd probably say it's going to be Debo, only because I don't know. I can't trust that Brandon Ayuk is in game shape yet. I
That's a good
genuinely
point.
have no idea. If Brandon Ayuk was in top form, and if he is in top form, and I'm just reading into something, I think Brandon has a great chance to get the ball a lot and make a lot of plays and ultimately have the best game because he's the one who can beat a press coverage like that. Debo can't. But where Debo could have the big game is by getting the ball early in some kind of a trick play or just finding a way to break open, getting the ball, and then wreaking havoc from there.
Yeah.
But getting past those linebackers is going to be a hell of a task. Like, getting past any of that defense is going to be asking a lot. So that's why I'm like, if you're Brock Purdy, don't turn the ball over. If you're going to turn the ball over, it better be like on their one. You know what I mean? Like, it's got to be on the other side of the field because you can't give them freebies in this one. You can't let the defense beat you.
Mm-hmm. So let me throw you this question, because when we talked about the Eagles, my guys were Quinyon Mitchell, Jalen Carter, and Jalen Hurts. Who are some of your players that you're most excited, whether you're either most nervous about or most excited to see, whether it's young guys or vets? Who are you most excited to see in week 1?
So I'm actually really excited to see how Dominic Puny does. I've been really high on him. I thought he was a great pick, and I think that he's getting the starting nod going into week 1. That's massive. That means something under Kyle Shanahan.
Yeah.
Like, that dude, Kyle Shanahan, lives and breathes just reliability. Like, if you have consistently been good for him, there is almost no chance that anybody steps over you. But Puny comes in here in year 1 and takes that starting nod 2 weeks ago, basically. And so I'm curious to see how he does as our right guard. I think he'll be an upgrade from Spencer Buford. So I'm excited about him. I'm excited about Leonard Floyd. I want to see how Floyd and this is questionable because I believe Leonard's questionable right now.
Mm-hmm.
But if he plays, I want to see how Nick and him look together because, like, we saw what Chase looked like last year. And I'm not saying that, like, Chase isn't a good player or anything like that, but Chase obviously takes plays off.
Yeah.
And ultimately, that's why he's no longer a 49er. Leonard Floyd doesn't take plays off. In fact, he really doesn't miss time. We talked about the only real injury since like 2018 happened in training camp.
Yeah.
Or during the training camp. So I want to see what that looks like. I want to see what Nick and Leonard can do together. Because, dude, if they can, I'm imagining what that looks like for a quarterback. Like, that would be terrifying to see Leonard Floyd and Nick Bosa coming down the barrel at you. Like, that's crazy. So those two are my top 2. After that, it's honestly going to be Brandon Ayuk.
I figured, yeah.
Look, man, you have done this to yourself. You had an entire offseason full of drama, full of talking yourself up, whether it was actually talking yourself up or just, figuratively in a lot of cases. Ultimately, you did a lot of talking. Now it's time to back it up.
Mm-hmm. No, I couldn't agree more. And again, him versus Sauce. There's no way Sauce isn't going to be saying, "Hey, I'm going to take this guy who just got paid and teaching him a thing or two." So it's going to be, that's going to be a nasty matchup. And I think that'll be one that's focused right away. Man, this is going to be a great Monday night game. Like, I'm excited. So, any final thoughts before I give you the lead for your final score?
I'm just hyped, dude. Like all off season long, I've been so down
That's
and
so true,
like
though.
putting on a face every week where it's like, it's okay. Everything's okay. Being a Niners fan is cool. Like Super Bowls, yay. Competing, yay. But it has been so depressing and so like so many unanswered questions and uncertainty. And now talked about how finally things are starting to feel like they're coming together. Like we have a freaking ball team, dude.
That's
Like
right.
I'm amped. That's my final thought. Like I'm just amped. Let's get this week one out of the way so that we can get into the season itself. I'm hyped.
Right. So before I let Ben do his final score, for those of you who want to know more about the Brandon Ayuk reaction to it all, because Ben did do a post game reaction, did a solo pod. Go ahead and check that out if you want his instant reaction, because he did it a few hours after the news came out, and it's awesome. Well done. Super short if you want to take a look at it. So it's on the channel. So I just wanted to plug that real quick because that was your first solo pod. So I'm excited for that.
I do appreciate that. And I do have a couple of hot takes real quick.
Mm-hmm.
Charvarius Ward is going to pick off Aaron Rodgers.
Love it.
And he's going to get his signature on that football in his post game. He's talked about how he wants to do it. He wants to pick off Aaron Rodgers, and he wants to get him to sign the ball afterward. It's going to happen, and I'm so hoping it does. CMC is going to dominate in the run game for us too. I think the CMC is just going to have a huge game because you're going to have to lean on him.
Mm-hmm.
Final score prediction: Niners win. Shocker, 24-17.
Oh, dude, we were close. I had a very similar score. I had the Niners winning 27-17.
Nice.
I think it'll be a 10-point dub. So I'm excited for
Wow.
Monday.
27 points against that Jets defense.
Yeah, I'm feeling confident. The Niners are. I think I'm a huge vibes guy, and I think the vibes are restored and replenished for this team. And honestly, I think it might be a situation like we've talked about for the Eagles, how it could get ugly early before the Jets really figure it out, and the Niners might be up 14-0 before the Jets really figure out something.
Could be.
And then it just kind of is a little back and forth. The Jets make it competitive, and then the Niners close the door. That's how I think it's going to end up going. Yeah, 27-17. Yeah, 10-point game. Yeah, that's what I was feeling for that one. So let's move on from the Niners, and we're going to focus on our third team. We're going to be doing like we mentioned last week, we decided we're going to be following the Los Angeles Chargers. So this will be the first time doing our Chargers check-in, is what we're going to be calling it moving forward. Just so any news and any, as we go on the weekly basis for them, and we're going to see if they can make it to the playoffs this year and beyond. So the Chargers are playing the Raiders this week, and honestly, I think that's going to be that's a good first matchup for this new version of the Chargers, and it's at home, so that's always great. So was there anything from this matchup you're really excited to see?
I'm just excited to see the Chargers open it up. Like they're a new team. They really are in a lot of ways. And I know they don't have a ton of new players, but you want to talk about those vibes being up. It just feels different around the Chargers organization right now. And talking to a few of the fans, like even they're hyped about it. Like they're like, nah, we're going all the way. We're winning the Super Bowl. I'm like, all right, pump your brakes a little bit. But when's the last time that they've been saying that? You know what I mean? Like it's pretty cool to see. So ultimately, like I think that the Chargers are going to have a big game. I think they're going to have a big opening week because they're at home. The fans are hyped. It's going to be loud. You got a brand new system. Could be nasty.
Yeah, especially since Justin Herbert looks like he's going to be all good to go week one. And people can say what they want about Greg Roman and how much he loves to run, but I think people overstate how, having Lamar Jackson as your quarterback makes it a little easier to just run all the time. But I think what we are going to see is a much more balanced team. It's going to feature a lot of play action. They're going to run the ball quite a bit. I'm anticipating them running a lot on early downs to just kind of set everything up for Herbert. But I'm really interested to see just how this offense looks and what is going to be missing. I think this defense is going to stifle the heck out of Gardner Minshew, and that offensive line isn't going to be able to hang with Bosa and Mack, and I think they're going to get a lot of pressure. I still think it's going to be a good game. It's a divisional game. It's not like this isn't an easy game. This game really matters, but I'm excited to see. I'm interested to see how this works out for them. But yeah, the vibes couldn't be better down there either. I agree with you.
I do agree with you. I think that ultimately this game starts off with Gus Edwards just pounding the rock. And then you start to get Josh Palmer in there and Lad McConkey in there and Quentin Johnson. Like these dudes they're going to see a lot more looks this year. And ultimately, like, I think we're going to see just a better flow offensively from the Chargers than we have since Herbert really came into the league. I'm excited to see it, man. Will Dissly is as tight end. I think he slept on a little bit. I'm not gonna lie. I think that look, I know he's not like a top tight end, but I don't know. I see a scenario where he gets a lot of looks in the like mid portion of the season when things are kind of flowing and you're realizing that, you know, McConkey is getting a whole bunch of looks and you know, just running, Gus is running all over us. All of a sudden you're going to see him wide open. Yeah. I think we could see some big games out of Dissly. I think that people need to stop sleeping on him.
Yeah, that's a great take. And not just Gus Edwards either. I think J.K. Dobbins is an awesome addition for them too. They offer just like what they offered in Baltimore. There's two change of pace guys. You got a bruiser in Gus and a reliable utility player in J.K. who can receive out of the backfield and he's a faster back. So I'm talking myself more into it each and every week. I'm excited to see how the Chargers look. And okay, so they're playing the Raiders. They're only favored by 3. Do you think it's going to be a close game, or do you think the Chargers might go out there? Like, what's your score prediction for this one?
I didn't really have like a score prediction, but I do think that the Chargers are going to run all over them. I do have a score prediction, but I think that ultimately the Chargers just dominate this game from the get. I think that the Raiders just kind of have the opposite of what's going on with the Chargers. Like they've almost had, not to the extent of the 49ers, but a similar offseason where it's like not a ton of good things have happened and you're running back essentially the same team as you were last year. And you're just hoping that the vibes kind of carry on from where you finished last year. But I don't know. I feel like there's too much going for the Chargers right now. And maybe I'm just on the hype train a little too high, but I think they got it. I think they're going to dominate this one.
Yeah, I'd put them I think it's going to be a 10-point victory. I don't think the Raiders offense is going to get going. I think I think this one's going to be maybe not 10 points. I think it'll be like a 24-17 kind of victory for them. Like the Chargers show nice flashes. There's even more room for growth, and we get to see a little bit of the potential in Jim Harbaugh's defensive style shows up a little bit. People see like, oh man, this defense might actually be solid this year versus how it was supposed to be last year. And now, maybe things are going to start evening out a lot more this year.
Yeah, maybe this is a bad score take, but honestly, I see 17-7.
No, it's not bad. Yeah.
I don't think that Vegas is going to really have it going offensively. I think that defensively, Crosby's going to get home because it's Max. He always does.
Yeah.
But I think they're going to start throwing the triple teams at him. And ultimately, the Chargers will be able to push that ball a little bit more than the Raiders will. And I think it's just going to come down to who's able to make those adjustments. And then you're banking on Antonio Pierce or Jim Harbaugh. Well, I'm going to take Jim Harbaugh 10 times out of 10. Maybe call it favoritism. I don't care. But I think a vast majority of NFL fans and whoever will take Jim over Pierce all day. So I'm looking at the adjustments of what halftime and afterward can look like. And I'm thinking that the Chargers just kind of don't look back after halftime.
So, okay, let me just throw out a fun random question. How long into the game until one bad Gardner Minshew pass forces Devontae Adams to throw his helmet at the bench?
So I think the first bad pass happens within the first drive. but I don't think that the helmet throwing happens until week 3 or 4. Ultimately, I
He's
think
good.
that
Yeah.
he's going to try and keep his cool. He's going to be like, it's okay. The Niners are still an option. Things are going to be okay. And then week 3 and 4 is going to hit. And Minshew's going to throw like 4 picks, and he's going to be asking for Aiden
Yeah.
O'Connell.
He's going to be either asking for Aiden or asking for a trade to go to the Jets and pair up with Aaron again. He's like, he's the only quarterback I can throw to me.
If Devontae went to the Jets and this Jets offense works out, they're like Super Bowl favorite by far.
Yeah. I wonder if they had to do that, I feel like they'd have to give up Wilson to make something like that happen.
Probably.
But I mean, it wouldn't. It'd be interesting. But yeah, I thought I'd throw that one out there because I'm interested to see. Devontae's been in a lot of talks where he's had to shut them down. He's like, I want to be here. I don't know how much I got to say it, even though your actions also say, especially on the receiver show, that you're like not that excited.
You know, and it was on that show that I really started like kind of feeling bad for him, because I'm not going to say that he didn't do it to himself, but at the same time, it's like he does show a lot of loyalty. And to be loyal to a team like the Raiders right now, who have nothing going for them, and I'm sorry to say it, but it's true. Like, how many years now have you not been competitive? And I mean that. Like, it's one thing to be competitive and be, still a middle of the pack team, but they're getting blown out at times. Mind you, they thoroughly handed it to the Chargers last year. But there's these like super high and then just crash and burn lows. And like, I have a good buddy who's a Raiders fan and he hates being a Raiders fan, but at the same time he's like, I'm loyal, I can't not be, blah blah blah. And I'm like, that I think is kind of rubbing off on Devontae, because like, Raiders fans are loyal. They are. And that team is loyal. And I think that Devontae is showing that loyalty to them and wanting to stick this through. I think it's hurting him a lot because, I mean, he's kind of coming out of his prime now. I think that he's at the butt end of it.
Yeah.
But he's still willing to give what he has to this organization to try and be competitive. And obviously he wants to win a ring. So
yeah, I can't hate him for it. And you know what? At the end of the day, if I'm a Raiders fan, and I've talked, I have a friend who's a Raiders fan. Him and I talked about this too. I was like, you know what? You guys can just tank, and then you guys can get Shador, who's the perfect Raiders style quarterback that you would want, and then you can just run it. And Devontae can stay and get the QB he actually wants, and then end his career on a high trajectory. So it'll
crazy.
It'll work out no matter. It'll work out no matter what happens, I think. Just tank
that
for
would be
Shador, bro.
such a perfect pick for them.
That's what I'm saying. I'd pick him next year. I'm like, if that's the case, I'm like, I'll ride with the Raiders if Shador's hiding in there, man.
Yeah. How interesting.
All right. So let's pivot to our final segment. So last year, we spent a lot of times going through week by week. We went pick by picks for matchups during the week. We're doing things a little different this year. If you want our weekly picks, we're still going to do them as normal this year. But they're just going to be posted on our Instagram and Twitter. Please go ahead and, or X, sorry. Please go ahead and check those out there for the full week-to-week picks. What we're going to do on the pod is we're going to pick 3 games, each of us, and some of them are going to be similar, some of them are going to be different. We don't know, what the other guy picked, but we're going to pick 3 games that we looked at the betting lines and what they're at, and we think, oh yeah, this team's going to totally cover. So Ben and I pick 3 games each, and we can go back and forth just instead of all 3 on 1, so then we can maybe have a little variety, maybe not. We'll see what happens. So Ben, I will let you kick off this segment for our picks for this week. And these ones, are a product of what we might see on our weekly picks, but we might be similar here, but some of our picks might differ. So we will update you guys week to week on who's ahead, who's behind. Last year I took the win, so we'll see if Ben can even the score this season. So Ben, what are your 3 betting picks for the week?
So
or I guess your first one, I should say.
Yeah, the first one's going to be, honestly, the Niners covering the -4. Like I said, I think that they, -4, that's going to be pretty easy, I think, for them. I think that they at least win by a touchdown.
For full transparency, I had that too. I thought the same thing. I was like, -4. with all, especially now with I was like, with Trent and BA back in the fold, you guys are gonna say -4. That's crazy to me. I was like,
Right.
nah, they're gonna cover for sure. Um, okay, I'll go with, so since we each had that one, I'll go with mine. I had the Chicago Bears, who are also -4 against the Tennessee Titans. I thought Caleb Williams' debut. This is too big of a game for this team to kind of, with all the hype around him. I think the Tennessee Titans are a perfect team to kind of have a first game against, and I think that he's going to showcase some ups and downs, but I still think they'll cover by a touchdown. They'll win by a touchdown at least.
Yeah, and I have the Bears as well on there.
Okay,
Because
let's go.
it's I'm just yeah, you're looking at Tennessee, and I mean they have a team, yeah, but the Bears have the hype train going for them right now, and they've got a completely revamped offense, and the defense looks nice. Like I think -4 is a little disrespectful for them. I think that they're going to win that one like 21-10 at least.
Yeah, exactly. All right, Ben, who is your final pick of the week?
I hate the Chiefs, Marcos. I hate the Chiefs, so I am not going to give them a win in week 1. I say that the Ravens flip the script and win 24-20.
Okay, so you have them covering. Yeah, the Chiefs were -3. So yeah, that's a perfect way to cover. I like that. I think it's going to be an awesome game. I'm excited to see that tomorrow.
Yes.
So this is where we differ. I did not have that pick. I was flirting with, with that game a little bit, but I was also flirting with some weird ones. I wanted to get frisky this week. I was frisky on my picks. You and I talked about that off pod, but we'll talk about that next week, and when it inevitably backfires in my face. But the one matchup I felt confident in, and just like you hate the Chiefs, I hate this team, but the Cowboys are 2.5 point underdogs in this game versus Cleveland on the road. 2.5. I think the Cowboys will win this game, and that'll inevitably make them cover. So whether it's a 3 point game or a touchdown game, I think the Cowboys are going to. I think they're going to have. I'm not. It's going to be a tough, because their defense is. The Cleveland defense is awesome, but I believe in the Cowboys offense more than I believe in the Browns offense. That's just how I feel, and I think that Dak and them are going to get the job done. And despite all these negative vibes, they've been playing with negative vibes for the past 30 years, so it doesn't really matter. I think it's something they're used to.
I'm concerned about that because they're only going to be throwing the ball against the Browns defense.
I mean, that's
They don't
fair too.
have they don't have running backs. Like their running back room is trash right now. They're probably, if not worse in the league, they're bottom 5, honestly. Like
Yeah.
that's
I
audacious.
guess
I
I
like
guess
it though.
I guess my argument for this one is, would I rather have a guy who can at least get the ball down the field? As much as you can send as many
Mhm.
guys as you want as Dak, but at the end of the day, Dak is a good enough quarterback to win versus and not have running backs versus not. I mean, even Cleveland, you don't have Nick Chubb, you have your backup running backs, and Deshaun Watson isn't that great at getting the ball down the field.
Sure.
Unless he steps up and gets the ball moving, then maybe I'm going to be eating my words, and hey, I'll take it. A Cowboys loss is good for me. But I think from a betting perspective, I just think as an underdog, this is a good spot for them, even though they have a history of being meh on the road. So it'll be interesting to see what version of the Cowboys we get.
I see where you're coming from. I respect it. I
Yeah.
think you're going to be wrong, but I respect it.
I hope I'm wrong, honestly, but I wanted to throw it out there. I wanted a dog in this game. So, no, I'm excited. So yeah, those were our picks for the weeks. Go ahead and put money on it. We're not yet. If you guys help us grow, we can eventually put money on this stuff. So that's, help us get there so we can all win and lose together. So
Please.
any final thoughts, Ben, before we head out into the first week of the football season?
It's week 1, dude. I'm hyped. Actually, yeah, a final thought, Marcos. This is September 4th, which marks 3 days before our exact 1 year since we started potting together. So I just want to shout us out real quick because it's been a year of growth. It's been a year of fun. Like we've gone through, I don't even want to say the highs and the lows. It's been all highs, honestly.
Mhm.
It's just been such a fun growing experience. And yeah, dude, I love this podcast. Love doing this with you. You're my buddy. You're my best friend. Like I couldn't be more grateful for it.
Nah, same dude. And internally grateful for this opportunity that we took a chance to just talk about the things we love the most. And dude, it's been awesome. And just learning how to do all this together has been crazy. So I am excited for the growth that we have planned, all the plans that we have planned for you guys. Um, And no, dude, what a year. Like, hopefully we're celebrating, our year with an Eagles win and a Niners win, and we can go next week and really just get into it. And so for you guys out here, a couple of changes you're going to be seeing along the lines. Ben and I are going to start doing post-game pods this season. So if you guys want to check it out, we're going to be pushing out slightly more content each and every week. So after every game, so the Eagles play on Friday, I'm going to do a solo pod on Friday, give my instant takes, and just, but not spoil everything, because we gotta save the good stuff for the pod. But we're going to give our instant reactions to what we noticed, what we liked, give our game balls to players. So I'm going to do mine, and then I will have it out the next day. Ben will do his. He'll have it out the next day. It'll be anywhere between, depending on how much we want to talk about it, 5 to 15 minutes, and it'll just be a breakdown. So please feel free to check it out. It'll still be on the normal feed, on the normal channel. So for all you YouTube listeners, please feel free to, watch it on there. Spotify, Amazon, all you audio listeners, please check it out. They'll be on there weekly, and we're also going to be doing that for the Kings. So we're going to be adding a lot more stuff this year. We're excited, and yeah, year 2 is going to be a big one.
Big year. Looking forward to it.
All right, so this was episode 56 of the Behind the Back podcast. You can hit us up at behindthebackpod13@gmail.com. Hit us up on any of our social medias that are located above. And for you audio listeners out there, you can hit us with all the links for the description are down below for each of our socials. Please feel free to like, subscribe, give us a follow, rate the show, give us comments, all that fun stuff. Help this show grow. We're growing more and more each day, and I'm excited to see just how much we're able to grow this season with you guys, especially as we throw in some new segments, as we throw in some more fun topics, and as we go through the turbulent year that is sports and the never-ending cycle that is the insanity of sports. So I am Marcos Conan Negron. Beside me here, as always, is
Benny Retz.
That's right, y'all. We love y'all. We will talk to you next week. Peace.
Peace.